Now, let's focus on this story. Former President Jacob Zuma is expected to head back to court on Tuesday. Zuma is set to appear in the Pietermaritzburg High Court for his arms deal corruption trial. National Police Commissioner Khehla Sitole has reportedly extended the deployment of officers to hotspots in Gauteng and KwaZulu Natal, thus in anticipation of protests. This also comes after last month's violent protests in both provinces. Zuma is currently serving his 15-month prison sentence for defying a constitutional court order to testify at the state capture inquiry. Political commentator Thabo Shole-Mashao joins us now here on Upfront on eNCA, DSTV Channel 43, to discuss this matter further. Thabo, good evening. Welcome to Upfront on eNCA. I guess the way we're hearing the reports of how the police and the law enforcement agencies are preparing for the week ahead, one would be saying, why didn't they do this last month?
Certainly. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers, President. Thanks for having me. One would say that, and one would say it's a little too late. And if you're from a different faction, you'd say better late than never. But nonetheless, it is a face-saving exercise which intends to send a message to the broader South African public, particularly the business community, that the government is up and awake. The security cluster has been injected with some new enthusiasm, and they're ready to halt any attempt to destabilize the country and any forms of looting. So this, more than anything else, there is some PR exercise mechanism that is at play. But also, it is a response, perhaps, to the murmurings that have come up in various reports, including in today's newspapers, where it has been reported that there have been some launches of the Release Zuma campaign in various regions in the KZN area, including the Herigwala area, eThekwini, and eMalahleni. So the police may also be responding to that, sending a message to the purported RET forces that they are not willing to tolerate any form of instability or violence.
Yeah, it is a sad state of affairs that South Africa's intelligence services, the law enforcement agencies have been factionalized due to the infighting in the ANC over many years now. Although in reshuffling his cabinet last week, President Matamela Ramaphosa took charge directly in the presidency of the state security and intelligence apparatus. This particular week might be telling some out in how they approach the situation if there are protests.
Certainly, it tells you that perhaps immediately after the reshuffling happened and various ministers had been installed, it tells you that there must have been a meeting that was held very quickly to say, how do we move forward to instill confidence in South Africans that the security cluster is up and about and ready to do what it ought to do. And also, you are mentioning a critical point there, Braden, that it has been factionalized, particularly the security state agency, as to who is supporting who. And it is now that the ministry has been called into the presidency or housed into the presidency, it tells us two things. One, it's either the president doesn't trust anyone else to deal with these issues. He wants to handle it himself, very closer to him, and so that he can crack the whip where necessary. Or it could also say that perhaps he's a bit paranoid at the same time. Why didn't he appoint another minister to take care of it, who could have done it outside the presidency? But either way, I think the previous events of looting have sent serious sounding bells to the presidency and to the government of South Africa that now they want to walk the talk more than anything else.
Yeah, and also disturbingly, we're hearing reports coming out now this weekend of the burglary at the home of the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, Jessie Duarte, and earlier speaking at Nuclear Cemetery in Johannesburg, where the ANC Women's League was honouring women leaders who were struggle stalwarts, and in honour of Women's Day, which is tomorrow. She said that she described this as a harassment of Comrade Jessie Duarte. And when you hear that, you wonder that is this governing party going to really pull itself together?
We shouldn't hold our breath on that note, Braden, that the governing party is going to pull itself together. We are going to see more fractures of the ANC as we are headed towards the local government elections, but also the ANC conference that will be taking place in 2022. So we will be seeing a lot of fragmentation that is taking place. But also a critical thing, you are also hearing different voices. I'm very wary to call it contradictions, because on one hand, you had Menomvula Mokonyane mentioning harassment. And in the newspapers today, we had Meje Sijuate also mentioning that the past few weeks or months have not been easy on her security-wise after the burglary, and that would shake anyone else. But also on this channel, on your show, a few minutes ago, we saw Minister Begicele pouring cold water on these issues, and as though it is nothing very serious, and as though it is just a hyperbole when we say that her life is in danger.
Yeah, and to many South Africans, Begicele, particularly in the police, they have a lot to answer for, because when the unrest began to gain momentum, on the 9th of July last month. For 3 days, we hardly saw any action by the police. And you looked at Durban, what was going on. You wondered if they had received an order not to do anything. So there's many questions to be asked. I mean, I asked a couple of days ago here on eNCA, the former Minister of Intelligence, Ronnie Kasrils. I asked Loso Naidu of KSEC and Ferial Hafiji, Associate Editor of Daily Maverick, shouldn't the president have removed Begicele as police minister as part of him taking charge of the law enforcement agencies? Because it looks like he had to make a political decision in keeping him in this job.
And again, it's a very illuminating point that you're raising there, Brad. And you might have seen again earlier in the newspaper reports today, where Minister of Police Begicele is actually complaining that people like myself and you are not pointing the finger at the police commissioner, Khehla Sitole, for being absent. He says that he was in isolation for COVID-related issues, and at the time he had to jump out, and we are all pointing fingers at him, and no one is saying anything about Khehla Sitole. That might have been the reason that he had finished to the president, and the fact that he also says he didn't receive any intelligence information regarding to this, and his absence, I think he might have justified it and said, listen, I was in isolation, I jumped out of it, and I did the best that I could, but the guy who was supposed to do more of the work was the police commissioner, and no one is saying anything about him. And I think those factors might have been considered by the president, that indeed the commissioner needed to be more visible than the minister, as he would be more operational, and the minister's role would be a political outlook. Perhaps the president absorbed those as sufficient reasons for him not to remove him.
A little bit of some extenuating circumstances. Thank you very much, Thabo Shole-Mashao, for some of your insights as we look at the week ahead with the former President Jacob Zuma due in court in his corruption trial from Tuesday. That's in the Pietermaritzburg High Court. Thank you very much, Thabo, for joining us here on eNCA.